In the quiet town of Willowbrook, nestled deep in the heart of the dense ancient forest, a chilling tale was whispered through the generations. It spoke of an elusive horror, a nightmare that stalked the shadows of the woods. They called it the Web Weaver. For years, the town folks have spoken in hushed tones of a massive arachnid, unlike any spider known to science. Its body was said to be the size of a small car. Its 8 hairy legs were as thick as tree trunks. But what made the Web Weaver truly terrifying was not its size, but its elusiveness. No one had ever seen it clearly, for it remained hidden in the darkest corners of the forest, weaving intricate otherworldly webs that captured more than just insects. It was said that those who ventured too far into the woods would feel an unnatural presence, an eerie sensation that sent shivers down their spines. The wind carried faint whispers of the spider's victims, lost souls who had dared to challenge the creature. Their faces could be seen in the glistening silk threads, distorted and frozen in eternal terror. Local legend spoke of a brave hunter, Samuel McCreed, who had ventured into the woods, determined to unravel the mystery of the Web Weaver. Armed with a machete and a lantern, he delved deep into the heart of the forest. The night was silent, except for the occasional rustling of leaves and eerie, distant cries. As he ventured forward, the trees grew closer together. The darkness deepened. It was then he felt it, a presence, an invisible web of dread that clung to him like vice. The forest seemed to close in, and he could barely breathe. He sensed something massive moving through the shadows, but every time he shone his lantern in that direction, it was gone. Samuel pressed on, determined to find the creature that terrorized the town for generations. As he ventured deeper into the forest, he stumbled upon a grotesque sight. There, woven into an immersive, glistening web, were the remains of an animal, and worse, the half-decomposed body of the previous explorers. His heart raced, and fear gripped his soul as he realized the enormity of this situation. The Web Weaver was real, and he was trapped in its lair. As he turned to flee, he felt something touch his shoulder. A cold, hairy leg. He turned to see the glimpse of a monstrous arachnid, its eyes gleaming with malevolence. The forest echoed with his horrified scream, but his cries were swallowed by the shadows. The legend of the Web Weaver lived on, a chilling reminder to all who heard it that some horrors are best left undisturbed, lurking in the depths of the unknown, waiting for their next victim. In the small town of Harrowsville, a sinister secret lies hidden beneath the soil, buried deep in the memories of its inhabitants. For years, a mysterious and cursed mansion stood at the outskirts of town, its eerie silhouette casting a long shadow over the minds of the locals. The mansion was known as the Munford House, a place shrouded in darkness and terror. Once a great estate, it had long fallen into despair, its crumbling facade serving as a haunting reminder of its dreadful history. The legend went like this. Over a century ago, a reclusive and eccentric doctor, Dr. Edgar Munford, had taken up residence in the mansion. He was known for his strange experiments and macabre curiosities. Rumors whispered of his obsession with the human body, his insatiable desires to unravel the dark secrets. One fateful night, the town was shaken by blood-curdling screams that echoed from the Munford house. The next morning, the mansion was sealed off, and the doctor was nowhere to be found. The people of Harrowsville breathed a collective sigh of relief, but the mansion's horrifying reputation endured. Decades passed and the Munford house became the stuff of ghost stories, a place children dared one to another to approach. This is until a group of thrill-seekers decided to investigate the mansion for themselves. Armed with flashlights and cameras, they crossed the threshold into the house's decaying interior. As they ventured deep into the darkness, they discovered Dr. Munford's disturbing laboratory. It was a chamber of horrors, filled with perverse human organs in glass jars, and ancient surgical instruments, tattered notebooks filled with cryptic notes. Suddenly, the group heard footsteps echoing from the hallway, and panic set in. In their rush to escape, they stumbled upon a hidden cellar. Its door jarred. The stench of decay overwhelmed them as they descended the rickety stairs. In the dim cellar, they encountered something far gruesome than they could have ever imagined. Rows of coffins, each containing the perfectly preserved, still breathing bodies of the doctor's victims. A chamber of the undead, tormented souls trapped in the state of living death, their eyes pleading for release. As the intruders tried to flee, a disturbing, ghostly figure bearing its grotesque face of Dr. Mumford confronted them. With an unholy hunger for flesh and vengeance, he lashed out at the trespassers, his cold, bony fingers grasping at their flesh. The harrowing scene of the explorers echoed through the Munford house, sealing their fate as the mansion claimed more victims. It seemed the cursed mansion had never truly been abandoned, and Dr. Munford's dark experiments continued to torment the living. Harrowsville, terrifying secrets endure, and the legend of the Munford house served as a warning to all who dare to uncover the horrors that lurk in the dark corners of the world, waiting to drag them down into the abyss of unending terror. The old house stood on a hill overlooking the town. It had been empty for years, and rumors swirled around it like fog. Some said it was haunted, others said that it was cursed. But one day, a young couple decided to move in. Their names were John and Mary, and they were eager to start a new life together. They didn't believe the rumors about the house, and they were confident that they could make it their own. At first, everything was fine. The house was creaky and old, but it was also charming. John and Mary loved the high ceilings, the stained glass windows, and the warped-around porch. But then, strange things started to happen. At night, they would hear noises coming from the empty rooms. Doors would open and close on their own, and sometimes they would catch glimpses of something moving in the shadow. At first, John and Mary tried to ignore the strange occurrences, but as the days went by, the phenomenon became more and more disturbing. One night, Mary woke up to find that dark figure standing at the foot of her bed. She screamed and the figure vanished. John and Mary were terrified. They didn't know what to do. They couldn't afford to move, and they didn't want to leave their home to whatever was lurking inside. One day, John decided to confront the unwanted guest. He went up to the attic where he heard most noises. The attic was dark and dusty, and the air was thick with the smell of mildew. John called out, "Who's there?" At first, there was no answer, but then he heard a voice whisper, "I am here." John turned around, but he couldn't see anyone. "Show yourself," he demanded. The voice laughed. "I cannot show myself to you, but I can show you something else." The voice fell silent, and the attic grew darker. John could feel something moving around him, but he couldn't see it. He started to back away, but it was too late. The thing lunged at him, and he felt its cold hands wrap around its throat. John struggled to breathe. He tried to scream, but no sound came out. The thing tightened its grip, and John's vision began to blur. He knew that he was dying. And then, just as suddenly as it begun, it was over. The thing released John and disappeared into the shadows. John collapsed on the floor, gasping for breath. He was alive, but he was shaken to the core. He knew that he could never stay in this house again. He and Mary packed their belongings and left the same night. The old house still stands on the hill, empty and abandoned, and the unwanted guest still waits inside for its next victim.